Hello and welcome to this tutorial on modeling inside of 3D Studio Max. Now, in this introductory tutorial, I'm just going to model a barrel in two different ways, because a barrel is one of the easiest things to model and show off several features of modeling in 3ds Max, and specifically the edit poly modifier. Now, first of all, I'm going to create a relatively low poly barrel here, and then second I'm going to create quite a high poly and detailed barrel, or at least the beginnings of one. Okay, so for this relatively low poly barrel, a quite simple one, we'll create a cylinder here with 12 sides, because that's all we really need. It's low enough to be lowish poly, it's high enough to know that it's a cylinder. I mean, if we went much lower it would stop being a cylinder. That's 12 relatively smooth. Okay, we're going to make sure there is a cap segment, because what we never want in modeling is what's called an n-gon, which is a polygon with many sides. That can create problems later on, so we'll make sure to cap that. Though, yeah, that's fine. And we're going to have 9 height segments, so that we have enough for 1, 2, 3, 4 metal bands to go around this barrel. Now I'm just going to pop a edit poly on top of the modifier stack here. I'll just walk you through how to select in an edit poly. As most things in the modifiers, you have your vertices, your edges, your borders, of which there are none, your faces, and elements. Now, with faces, one thing that you'll notice, and one of the most useful things in 3ds Max, is once you've selected one, you can hold down Shift and select other things relative to that one. So you can select here, and holding down Shift, you can select all this row, or this column, and all this row, which is very useful to do. And also, when changing from one of these modes to another, which you can also do pressing 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 on your keyboard, if you have selected this vertice, you hold down Control and click. It doesn't work if you press 4. Click polygon, it will select all of these faces, just as if you click this polygon, it will select all these edges when you change from polygon to edges. Okay. And another nice thing you can do with polygons is grow your selection. Now, this polygon is made up of this vertice, this vertice, this vertice. We press grow, and everything that is touching these vertices will be selected. Okay, just like if I selected this edge, everything that is touching it will be selected. Okay, nice. Alright, let's select our bands then to start with. No, sorry, I accidentally dragged then. Okay, that's perfect. And what we're going to do is we're going to go into Edit Polygons tab and Extrude. Now by default, your extrusion probably looks like this. That's because it's on group normals, not local normals. So we'll just bring that in. If you wanted each of these to be a separate face, you could also choose by polygon, but we don't want that, we want local normals. So we'll bring it in there. Okay. And in order to create that lip that exists on every barrel, we'll grab our edges and holding Shift, create this ring. With edges, another thing we can do is select an edge and ring. And we'll select all this ring. If we press loop, it would select all of these like this. So loop, ring, which is very useful. So we'll go loop, no sorry, we'll go ring and click connect. The reason why we're using these small dialog boxes instead of directly pressing clicking connect, is because you want some control over how we're doing it. For example, we want to slide this all the way to 85. Good. And we're going to do the same on the bottom here. Just press G to get rid of the grid. So we're going to press that and shift click. And now you see it's actually the wrong side. So here we have to go minus 85. And that'll be perfect. Now I'm just going to grab these two, change them to poly, and grow them, and then extrude negatively. Because if we extrude positively, they go out, extrude negatively, and now we have that beautiful lip. Just because I want to, I'm just going to make that 2.5. Perfect. Okay. There we go. And now to create the curve of the barrel. We could do that by creating a taper, which does this. We just create a taper there, and by moving the center of the taper and making sure it's symmetrical, there we go, that's the center of the barrel. Give it a curve. We can create a very nice barrel-like curve. And that's what we're going to do in the next one as well. But I'm just going to show you how to do this inside of the edit poly without using any other modifiers. So what we'll do is we'll just go into soft selection, and without turning it on, you can see that if we select this middle row and scale it, it scales just those polygons. But if you use soft selection, there is a fall off of which vertices are affected. And we can affect this fall off right here. So I'm just going to bubble that fall off a bit and increase it. Increase it until it's all affected. And there we have it. By bubbling it, it's given us that nice barrel effect. If we'd pinched it, what it would have done is that. Okay, but we won't, and we'll give it a nice barreling. Okay, and here you have it. It's not the best barrel, but it's quite a nice low poly barrel. Obviously no textures, but we're just modeling at this stage. Now I'm going to show you how to create a nicer, more high poly barrel. Okay, first of all, if it's going to be high poly, then it's worth each of those planks that we'll be creating the barrel to be its own plank, which it wasn't in the one we did. So let's just create that's quite a nice plank. We don't need these, they are unnecessary. So that's just a plank of wood right there. It's a bit thick, to be fair. Height, bring you down. Oh, if I'm going to do it like this, I might as well be exact. There you go. That's a nice plank of wood. Now, in Edit Poly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to chamfer this. Now, a chamfered box does exist as a primitive. You can go into Extended Primitive, chamfered box, and you can just go like that and whoop, chamfer. But I'm just going to show you how to do it in Edit Poly. It's extremely simple. You just press 2 to grab the edges, and I'm just going to press Edit Edges, chamfer. I'm going to make that 0.25 centimeter chamfer. Okay, very nice. I'm also going to change this color because you can't really see the wireframe on top of it. Okay, that's so much better. Okay, now I've created one plank. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down Shift with no selection. None of the sub-objects are selected here. So what I'm actually doing is I'm moving the entire object, not inside the object. I'm going to shift and move, and that's going to create a clone. I'm going to butt that up really quite close, but not touching. And I'm going to make 20 of those. Bam. That's just created 20 copies there. That's good, they're close but not touching. Nah, that's fine. Okay, and I'm going to, in Edit Geometry, attach list. Now I could just attach and select each of them, but what attach list does, it just gives me a list of all the objects in my scene. We can choose to filter some out if we don't want them. I'm just going to attach. So all of this is now one object. And finally you can see how element comes into effect. It gets each one of these that is not touched. Okay, and what we're going to do now is just use the bend modifier to make this into a barrel, or at least a cylinder. And I think the angle would be 360 or 180. Well, I was wrong somehow. Let's take it bit by bit then, hey? Okay, that's not the angle I want. Is that the angle I want? Maybe? Yes, that is the angle I want. I wanted 90 degrees in y-axis. It was 360. 360. Maybe not. Oh, yeah, it was. 360 touches, so I'm just going to make it pop. 359.5. Okay, beautiful. And I'm just going to rotate the entire object. Now note that I'm rotating it not within bend, I'm just rotating it the entire object. Okay. I was just pressing L there to view it from the left hand side in an orthographic, and P to get back to perspective. Okay, now we have a cylinder. It's quite squat, isn't it? I should have made them longer. Oh well. Okay, now I'm going to create another edit poly. What I can do is I can make it longer by selecting all of these vertices and just making them bigger, making them taller. Now it gets rid of any measurements that you may have done at the beginning. Actually, does that change? No, that won't do it. Okay. So we have planks in a cylinder. Now what we can do is create a cylinder. First of all, let's center this. What we can do is we can go to this, which is hierarchy, and here you can affect things like where the pivot point is on the model and things like that. So we'll affect pivot point only and center to object. So that puts on the exact center of our object. And get rid of affect pivot point only. And we will go and we will 0 it to the world. Bring it up again, but at least we now know it's zeroed. Okay. And we will create a cylinder from 0. We'll give it, because this is high poly, we'll give it a lot of sides. We'll make sure it's on 0. Pom, pom. And we don't need any of that. So what we're doing now is just creating the metal band. Wait, that'll be fine. Okay, edit poly, face. Never mind, go back into cylinder, get rid of caps. Okay, this time we don't want caps, we want that end gone, so that we can delete it in 1. Okay, now if we click this, we only see the object we currently have selected. So we only see this. Now, you might think, oh, that's fine, but it's not. these are the only faces that we would be able to see in a good render. These are actually invisible. We can see which are back faces by clicking on the object, object properties, back face cull. There you go. Those weren't real faces. They were fake. It's the back side of faces. So what we're going to do with this, we're just going to add a shell modifier. There we go. So on the inner amount, just going to create that shell. And now we have the bands. Perfect. Okay. So we'll bring them up there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Control, control, control. Bring that down. Kind of want them to be a bit smaller. What we can do is do the same as before. 1, 2, 3. But instead have them as instances. What this does is, if I edit this, the others are just copies of that, and they retain any changes. So I'm only editing this one, and these ones will have the same changes. So I'm going to make it thinner. Good. And we'll move them all up. Now if I move this one, it wouldn't affect the others, because the only changes that it gets are inside the object. This here, I'm just moving the location of the object. Okay, make a bit more there. Perfect. Okay, now that we have this, which is a much higher poly barrel, I'm going to attach these to it. Now, be warned, every time you attach these circles have lost all of their modifier stack. They have now been absorbed by this modifier stack of the wooden planks. But that's okay. We've done all we needed to do to these circles. So now I'll just add the taper. That's not what I wanted. That looks quite nice, but that's not what I wanted. Let's see, symmetry. There we have it. Oh, there's my problem. Now, these planks have no way to bend, because they only have here, they only have vertices here and here. It's impossible for them to bend. So what I'm going to do is, a good thing when you're in Edit Poly is you can use these, which is the modeling ribbon. So a swift loop, what that can do is, let's see, not swift loop, what am I thinking of? Now you know what, rather than swift loop is very nice, but right now I'm actually just going to show you. I'm just going to go connect. So I've selected all the vertices on all of the planks, and I'm just going to add a lot of edges. There's 15 to be nice. 15 edges. Only on the planks, not on these belts. There we go. And now you can see they can bend because they have edges to bend with. So we'll add a curve. Curve more. And here you have a much nicer barrel than the previous one. Now that is a much nicer barrel. And what we can do as well, because that wouldn't hold anything, we can just copy this over here, get rid of No, I copied it as an instance. I didn't want that. I'm going to copy that over here as a copy. Get rid of all of its modifiers. And there you have it. It's gone back to this. I'll now rotate that 90 degrees. By the way, if you're rotating and you're not getting it by every 5 degrees, just go up here and just enable angle snap. Sorry, I probably should have told you that beforehand. Right now, and we're going to use this as the top and bottom for our barrel. So what we're going to do is we're going to use booleans. Booleans can be quite nasty because they can leave bad geometry, but for a quick model, for just like concept sketching, they are invaluable. So this cylinder is going to be where we want our lid. So I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Radius. Bump, bump, bump. Whip. No, not that much. Yeah, that'll do. And now with this, I'm actually going to save a copy of it. No, I'm going to do both at the same time actually. So one for the top, one for the bottom. Move this down so it's intersecting with both. Actually create two just in case. There we go. That's probably going to be better, yep. Now, I'm going to go into compound objects and pro boolean whilst having this one selected. Start picking. And you couldn't really see it there. Let's select this and this, so we can only see these two. Now, this is a pro boolean. I will pick this cylinder, and by default it will cut a hole, but that's the exact opposite of what we want. What we wanted was intersection, not subtraction. So now we have used that cylinder to cookie cut out of our object. That's actually done a very nice cut there. It can be sloppy and create some very nasty cuts and some very nasty topology, but that was actually quite beautiful. That's exactly what it should be used for. So we're going to here again. We've got our planks, pro boolean, make sure intersection is clicked, start picking, and we'll pick this one right here. Right click to exit. Now, I always like just turning these into editor poly, right click, collapse all, just so that they are edit polys now, and they're no longer pro booleans. Or you can just right click, editor poly. Slightly different, but very similar. Okay, so now you've created a much nicer, a much more high poly looking barrel. Okay, hopefully you enjoyed this tutorial. Hopefully it's shown you a couple of things. Thank you.